Welcome to Metamodernism Uncensored, the podcast for dissecting hard truths through a metamodern lens.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Same here. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a piece of political and media criticism that is, frankly, it's blistering.
Oh, absolutely blistering.
Right. So we are pulling apart a highly analytical text from the libertarian outlet, The Opposition.
Yeah.
And the piece is titled The Deafening Echo Chamber, Our Victorious War We Won So Hugely Until We Found Out We Maybe Lost It.
It's quite a title.
It really is, and it is a surgical dismantling of how modern political theater actually functions.
But, before we go any further, it is crucial to lay down some strict ground rules for you, the listener.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We need to clear the air right out of the gate.
Right, because the source material we are examining today, it contains intense, highly politically charged critiques.
Very intense.
Yeah. It directly targets the right-wing media apparatus, specifically, Fox News, commentators like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, and the Trump administration's messaging.
Right.
But at the same time, the text levels equally severe criticisms at the left-wing media ecosystem.
Right, like targeting MSNBC and progressive internet enclaves.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to impartially dissect and report on the arguments presented in this text.
We are not endorsing any political side here.
No, not at all. We are not validating one political party over another. We are simply, exploring the mechanics of media propaganda.
And the architecture of echo chambers.
Right, and the concept of postmodern political theater exactly as they're outlined in the source.
Right. We're looking at the machinery of the narrative, not taking sides in the political crossfire.
Exactly.
So I want you, the listener, to imagine a scenario for a second. Imagine you've been told every single night by voices you deeply trust that a war your country is currently fighting is a spectacular, unmitigated triumph.
Like a total win.
Right. You are shown vibrant graphics, sweeping declarations of total dominance, and you go to sleep feeling secure in this absolute, flawless victory.
You feel great about it.
Yeah. Only to wake up one morning to a peace deal that reads, word for word, like a negotiated stalemate.
Ouch.
Right. A deal where your government is making massive, multi-billion-dollar concessions to the very enemy you were told was just, reduced to ash.
It's jarring.
It is. How does a society experience that level of cognitive whiplash without completely breaking down? Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to understand the whiplash, we first have to deeply understand the specific informational ecosystem this text analyzes.
Right.
The author introduces us to a demographic figure described as the average, quote, Fox News boomer Republican.
Okay, yeah.
And what is essential to grasp immediately is that this person is not framed as the villain of the story.
Oh, that's an important distinction.
It is. The text goes out of its way to describe this viewer as a carefully cultivated specimen.
Cultivated specimen. I like that phrasing.
Right. This is someone who has been raised under the bright, comforting studio lights of cable news, fed a very specific, steady diet of absolute certainty.
Right. They never hear a dissenting opinion.
Exactly. They walk out into the complex wilderness of American politics, genuinely, sincerely believing they're the most well-informed person in the room.
Okay, let me stop you right there, though, because it's easy to say they are a cultivated specimen, but doesn't that sort of strip away all their agency?
How do you mean?
Well, are we really supposed to assume these viewers are just passive victims of an algorithm? They chose to tune in.
That's true.
They chose to ignore alternative sources. I get the whole stained glass window metaphor from the text.
Right, the idea that the viewer sits there like a medieval peasant.
Exactly, trusting the high priests of the network to interpret the world. But to me, it feels more like a driver who actively tapes over the check engine light on their dashboard.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Because they prefer the illusion of a functioning car. They are complicit in their own delusion, aren't they?
Well, that is a completely fair pushback.
Right.
And it gets to the heart of how media consumption functions today.
Right.
It's not entirely passive, but it is, heavily incentivized. The text suggests that the viewer is participating in an emotional transaction.
An emotional transaction.
Yeah. The television network provides moral clarity and psychological comfort in an overwhelmingly complex world.
Makes sense. The world is scary. TV makes it simple.
Exactly. The stained glass analogy works because the peasant wants the moral clarity. The viewer wants to know who is strong, who is weak, who is a patriot, and who is a traitor.
Give me the good guys and the bad guys.
Right. And crucially, the network tells them which obvious contradictions they should completely ignore until after the commercial break.
Wow.
They are trading their critical faculties for anxiety relief.
Trading critical faculties for anxiety relief. That is wow. And the foundation of that anxiety relief, the core pillar holding up the specific illusion of total victory, was the rhetoric coming straight from the top of the government.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to talk about the use of the word obliterated.
Yes, the text zeroes in on that word.
The president at the time literally told the nation that Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities had been, quote, completely and totally obliterated.
He really leaned into that framing.
He did. He framed it as a spectacular military success. And when there was even a hint of doubt from the press corps about the actual extent of the damage, he doubled down.
He didn't just double down, he was emphatic.
Right, insisting, obliteration is an accurate term, and threw in the exclamation, bullseye.
Yeah, that bullseye tweet was something else.
It really was.
Well, we have to look at the psychological weight and the linguistic function of that specific word, obliterated.
Right, it's a heavy word.
In a mature democracy, deploying words like that from the executive branch is incredibly dangerous because the word is splendidly final.
Splendidly final. I love how the author puts that.
It really captures it. Because if an enemy threat is reduced to literal dust, it negates any further obligation on the part of the citizen to pay attention.
Oh, I see. Problem solved. Go back to sleep.
Exactly. If the target is obliterated, the story is over.
Yeah.
You don't need to ask complicated follow-up questions about the tedious mechanics of diplomacy.
Right. Or United Nations inspections.
Or the nuances of economic sanctions.
Yeah.
Obliteration is a hard period at the end of the geopolitical sentence.
And here's the thing. That's where the sheer absurdity of the narrative collapses under its own weight.
Please.
If you are sitting there taking the English language at its ordinary, dictionary definition, completely and totally obliterated, means exactly that. It's gone, evaporated.
Right.
So the text rightly asks, why in the world did the United States subsequently need to dispatch the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, to go examine a crater in search of diplomatic possibilities?
It makes no sense.
None. If it's a crater, there's nothing to inspect. You don't send technical committees and highly trained diplomats to negotiate with a pile of radioactive dust.
Right, and that is the exact friction point where the televisual narrative meets physical reality.
The friction point.
Yeah. The narrative of obliteration directly conflicted with the reality of the government's subsequent actions. But the television viewer wasn't prepared for the reality of technical committees.
Or escrow accounts, or verification disputes.
Exactly. They had been primed for a televisual victory.
A televisual victory, that sounds so clinical.
Well, it's a beautifully clean thing. It happens in a climate-controlled studio in Manhattan.
Right, very safe.
It involves graphics, where maps are redrawn with bold red arrows, and complex, bloody geopolitical realities are condensed into chyron-sized phrases scrolling safely at the bottom of your screen.
It's just a TV show for them. It's the grave satisfaction of watching a pundit essentially supervise the destruction of evil right before a commercial for pharmaceutical drugs.
That's exactly how it feels.
I mean, the viewer was told the Iranian regime was tottering, the military was mathematically shattered, the Navy was finished.
Right.
And the only question left was whether they would surrender on a Tuesday or Wednesday. It was a complete, hermetically sealed illusion.
Which brings us to the actual architects of that illusion.
Yes. The pundits.
We have to look at how the punditry class, the high priests of this cable news religion, specifically manufactured that atmosphere of inevitability.
Right. They weren't just reporting the news.
Not at all. They didn't just report on military airstrikes. They provided a very specific kind of liturgical music to accompany the visuals.
Liturgical music. That's a powerful way to frame it.
They constructed a reality where critical thought was framed as a lack of patriotism.
Wow. Okay, let's get into the specifics, because the text lays out the exact rhetoric used.
Let's do it.
You have Ben Shapiro calling the campaign the single bravest foreign policy move of my lifetime.
Bold statement.
Very bold, but he goes further. He claims the Iranian regime was in its death throes.
Death throes.
Think about what that phrase does to a listener. If an enemy is in its death throes, it's actively expiring. It's twitching on the floor.
Right.
It implies that any minute now, the flatline sound is going to echo across the Middle East.
Well, let's dissect why that phrase is so strategically deployed.
Okay.
If the enemy is in its death throes, you, the consumer of this news, do not need to mentally prepare for the grueling, multi-decade reality of long-term deterrent.
Oh, right, because it's already over.
Exactly. You don't need to think about evasion, adaptation, asymmetric proxy retaliation, or the simple fact of the regime's survival.
You just have to wait for the final spasm and applaud the genius of the administration that delivered the fatal blow.
Precisely. It is profoundly satisfying language because it completely absolves the viewer and the commentators themselves from having to think about what comes next.
Right, no messy aftermath.
You don't have to explain how to occupy a hostile country or rebuild a destabilized region or account for civilian casualties if the enemy just neatly dies on cue.
But, I struggle to understand how these commentators can hold such glaringly contradictory ideas in their heads simultaneously.
Oh, it's wild. Give me an example.
Take Mark Levin.
Okay, Levin.
He's praising the president, declaring, "This is what a real leader looks like." Right. And on one hand, Levin was broadcasting that the regime had never been weaker in its 47-year history.
Right, they're pathetic and crumbling.
But in the exact same breath, he was warning that if the U.S. didn't bomb them immediately, America's children would face an apocalypse of tens of thousands of ballistic missiles and scores of nuclear warheads.
It's dizzying.
It's Schrodinger's enemy. They are simultaneously on the verge of total pathetic collapse and on the verge of apocalyptic, world-ending Godzilla-level strength.
Godzilla level, yeah.
How does an audience not get whiplash from that alone?
Because the cognitive dissonance is the point.
The point.
Yeah, it's a classic historical propaganda technique, not unique to any one era.
Ah, okay.
The enemy must be portrayed as incredibly weak to assure the public that victory will be cheap, easy, and painless.
Right. Walk in the park.
But the enemy must also be portrayed as incredibly strong, an existential menace, to justify the necessity of immediate, overwhelming violence.
That is so manipulative.
It is. But the text notes a fascinating moment where Levin accidentally stumbled into the truth.
Oh, really? When was this?
Well, in a later moment, while questioning the enforceability of a new diplomatic deal, Levin admitted that the Iranian regime cheats and hides, and that, quote, our intel and satellites simply cannot catch all of it.
Wait, what? Which is an incredible admission.
Right.
That completely undermines the entire premise of the clean televisual war.
Completely shatters it.
If our satellites can't see everything because the enrichment facilities are buried deep underground and deliberately dispersed across a massive mountainous country,
Yeah.
then you cannot possibly know that you've completely obliterated the threat with a few nights of airstrikes. It's logically impossible.
It is logically impossible, but the echo chamber does not allow for that kind of retroactive continuity correction.
They just memory hole it.
Exactly. If you admit the limits of American intelligence gathering, you have to admit the limits of the military strikes that rely on that intelligence.
Right, which they can't do.
And the rhetoric only escalated from there to ensure nobody asked those questions.
Yeah, like Mike Huckabee.
Yeah, you have Mike Huckabee going on television and calling Tehran the mothership of Satan.
Mothership of Satan.
And claiming Israel was just the appetizer before they destroyed the United States.
Let me jump in on that, because why do we resort to that specific apocalyptic language? You can't chart the mothership of Satan on a military briefing map.
No, you definitely not.
To me, it feels like lowering the temperature of a highly delicate, immensely complicated regional crisis to the level of a Sunday morning cartoon villain.
Cartoon villain is exactly right.
It actively stops citizens from understanding the hard mechanics of deterrence, or the fragility of global energy markets, or missile survivability.
Yes.
Once you label the target the mothership of Satan, anyone trying to inject nuanced diplomatic analysis into the conversation feels like they are defending the devil himself.
And that is exactly the psychological mechanism at play. It functions as an endpoint for critical thought.
End of discussion.
Right. It shifts the paradigm from a geopolitical dispute, which requires analysis, to a holy war, which only requires faith.
Wow, a holy war.
And then we look at the political figures reinforcing this. Ted Cruz went on Fox News to guarantee that the U.S. was, quote, unquestionably winning the war.
Unquestionably.
He explicitly promised there wouldn't be a protracted military engagement, assuring the audience, you're not going to see hundreds of thousands of boots on the ground. Iran is not Iraq.
Okay, I am so glad you brought up the no boots on the ground promise, because the text uses the analogy of a man lighting a match in a fireworks warehouse and promising not to burn it down.
That's a great analogy.
But frankly, I think an even better analogy is a politician tossing a massive boulder into a crowded swimming pool and aggressively legislating that there won't be any ripples.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Exactly. Intentions do not matter in geopolitics. Consequences do. You can promise the camera all day long that it won't become a quagmire, but once you toss the boulder, the physics of the water take over.
And this raises the fundamental question of postmodern political theater. Are these figures intentionally lying to the public?
That's the million-dollar question.
The text suggests that calling it a deliberate, mustache-twirling lie might actually be giving them too much credit.
Really? How so?
The deeper, more insidious issue is that they are in the business of selling certainty where uncertainty exists. They are selling finality where deep ambiguity remains.
Okay, yeah.
Look at Sean Hannity's coverage. The text tracks his specific language over a period of days, and it reads less like journalism and more like a religious incantation.
Religious incantation. Give me some examples.
Well, Hannity said the U.S. absolutely decimated, obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Then shortly after, totally defanged, their nuclear program has been obliterated.
It's just a chant.
It's liturgical repetition. Decimated, obliterated, defanged, obliterated.
It's not analysis at all. It's an emotional service.
Exactly.
It's a lullaby designed to rock the citizen to sleep so they never wake up and wonder if anyone in charge actually knows what is happening on the ground.
Yeah, don't look behind the curtain.
And you see the exact same bureaucratic certainty from Pete Hegseth, transitioning from his role as a Fox personality to a government official.
Right.
Summarizing the mission as clear, devastating, decisive. Just destroy the missiles, destroy the Navy, ensure no nukes.
Tidy, muscular, perfect for a 3-minute viral clip on social media.
But entirely, fatally unsuited for explaining what happens next.
Yes, completely unsuited. The business model of modern political media relies heavily on selling facts not yet in evidence and victories not yet secured.
Selling the fantasy.
But while the echo chamber was busy selling this incredibly clean, highly moral theater of total victory, there was a completely different, infinitely messier reality taking place in the physical world.
Right.
A reality that the critics of the war had been trying to point out from the very beginning.
Yes, let's talk about the critics, the people who were completely marginalized.
The ones shouting from the rooftops.
The ones who are labeled by voices like Ben Shapiro as pernicians.
Pernicians. What a word.
They were dismissed by the echo chamber as cranks, isolationists, appeasers, pacifists, and partisan hacks.
Name-calling instead of engaging.
Exactly. But they actually knew the real, tangible risks of going to war with Iran, and they were shouting it from the rafters.
They absolutely were.
They understood something that the televisual audience was deliberately shielded from. The brutal, unforgiving reality of asymmetrical warfare.
Asymmetrical warfare is the concept the echo chamber had to omit for the narrative to survive.
You couldn't talk about it.
Because Iran's strategy was never a secret to anyone paying attention outside of the cable news bubble.
Right.
Iran had spent the last 2 decades watching the United States military very, very closely.
Taking notes.
Yeah. They watched the U.S. in Iraq. They watched the long, grinding failure in Afghanistan. They watched the intervention in Libya. They watched the complexities of Syria.
And what did they learn from all of this?
They learned that Washington constantly, repeatedly, mistakes battlefield dominance for strategic mastery.
Oh, that's such a crucial point. They realized the United States military can blow things up with unparalleled brilliance, but the American political apparatus governs the subsequent consequences disastrously.
Disastrously.
We can destroy almost anything on the planet, but we struggle to control almost anything afterward.
Exactly. I want to dive deep into what asymmetrical warfare actually means in this context, because it's vital.
Please do.
A weaker military power like Iran does not need to defeat the United States in a conventional set-piece battle to frustrate American objectives.
Right. It's not risk. They aren't rolling dice.
They know they can't match the U.S. Air Force plane for plane. They don't need to sink carrier strike groups in a traditional naval engagement like it's World War II.
That would be suicide.
To win asymmetrically, a weaker power only needs to survive.
Just survive.
It needs to impose costs, economic costs, political costs, human costs. It needs to leverage proxy networks like Hezbollah or the Houthis to disrupt shipping and threaten allies without triggering a direct, undeniable response.
Right. Keep it murky.
It needs to preserve enough capability to deter further action, enough ambiguity to force a negotiation, and enough internal political structure to prevent the U.S. from translating physical destruction into political submission.
It's the difference between breaking someone's television and making them agree with your favorite show.
That's a great way to put it.
You can smash all of their infrastructure to pieces, but military superiority does not automatically equal political control.
No, it doesn't.
You can destroy air defense systems and crater missile depots, but that doesn't spontaneously produce regime collapse or compliance.
Exactly.
Because, as the analysis points out, the enemy always gets a vote. Geography gets a vote, domestic politics get a vote, and global energy markets get a massive vote.
And this brings us to one of the most critical omissions in the entire echo chamber narrative, the intelligence assessments.
Oh, yeah, the intelligence. This part blew my mind.
Public reporting from the Associated Press, along with deep U.S. and IAEA intelligence assessments from 2025, showed a reality that the pundits ignored.
They completely ignored it.
The intelligence indicated that Iran had not had an active nuclear weapons program since 2003.
2003.
They had enriched uranium to near weapons-grade levels, yes, and they had acquired the potential capability to build a weapon if they chose to do so.
Right.
But they had not made the actual political decision to weaponize.
Okay. I want to make sure we don't just gloss over that because that distinction is massive.
It's everything.
It is the literal difference between a serious, long-term strategic risk that needs to be managed through deterrence and statecraft versus an imminent, ticking time bomb emergency that requires a preemptive unilateral war.
Yes.
But the text argues that distinctions are poison to propaganda.
Poison.
The echo chamber couldn't handle the nuance between having the capability and making the decision.
Well, let's unpack why nuance is poison. If you present a highly nuanced intelligence picture to a primetime audience, that audience might start asking logical questions.
Like, why are we rushing into this?
Exactly. They might say, wait, if they haven't had an active, finalized weapons program since 2003, and they haven't made the decision to build one now, why are we acting like a missile launch is hours away?
Right.
Propaganda requires imminence. It requires the threat to be right now, today, at your doorstep to justify overwhelming immediate action.
I have an analogy for this.
Let's hear it.
It's like the media confusing a neighbor having flour, sugar, and eggs in their pantry with that neighbor actively baking a poisoned cake to throw through your window.
That's exactly it.
Yes, they have the ingredients. Yes, that's concerning if you hate cake. But launching a preemptive strike on their kitchen because you think they might decide to bake it tomorrow is madness.
It is madness.
It makes you question the basic logic of the entire echo chamber. If anyone bothered to look at the reality that Iran is a nation-state with incredibly deep underground facilities built specifically to withstand American bunker busters, with widely dispersed scientific capabilities, deeply entrenched proxy networks stretching across the entire Middle East, and literally decades of institutional muscle memory experience surviving severe economic sanctions and sabotage.
Decades of experience.
How could anyone genuinely believe a few nights of airstrikes would result in a clean, unconditional surrender?
It is the definition of magical thinking.
Magical thinking, yes.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, magical thinking inevitably, always, has to collide with physical reality.
The real world always wins.
The television narrative can only float above the ground for so long. Eventually, the dust from the airstrike settles, the smoke clears, the adrenaline fades, and the diplomatic paperwork actually has to be signed.
Ugh, the paperwork.
And that brings us to the most jarring part of this entire saga, the arrival of the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU.
Oh man, the MOU. This is where the whiplash hits maximum velocity.
Maximum velocity.
Imagine our poor cultivated boomer Republican sitting in his recliner. He's been told the war is won.
Obliterated.
The enemy is obliterated. The high priests on TV have sung their glorious hymns of victory, and then the diplomatic settlement drops.
Reality bites.
The actual text of the agreement is released, and it flies in the absolute face of every single thing the echo chamber told him.
Every single thing.
It is not a document of surrender. It doesn't even look like a document of defeat. At the very best, most generous reading, it looks like a stalemate.
Best case scenario.
At worst, it looks like capitulation.
Let's examine the actual specific terms of the MOU that the text highlights, because the details matter immensely.
Yes. Let's get into the weeds here.
First, regarding the nuclear program, the very program that Hannity and others repeatedly assured the public was completely, totally obliterated.
Right.
The MOU explicitly states that Iran will maintain the, quote, current status quo of its nuclear program, pending a final, comprehensive agreement.
Status quo. I mean, what a magnificent bureaucratic phrase to use for something that was supposedly turned to radioactive glass. If a facility is completely obliterated, there is no status quo left to maintain.
None.
If the program is actually defamed and decimated, it wouldn't be alive enough to require future diplomatic negotiations, future UN verification protocols, and ongoing disputes.
Exactly. And then we get to the economic provisions of the MOU, which are even more staggering.
This part made me sick.
The United States officially commits to supporting at least $300 billion in reconstruction and economic development.
$300 billion.
Let's break down what that entails. The U.S. agrees to lift direct oil sanctions.
Yeah.
They agree to lift banking sanctions.
Okay.
They agree to lift secondary sanctions.
Yeah.
Unfreeze billions in frozen assets, issue waivers, and actively work to restore financial channels and international insurance services.
Okay, wait. I need you to pause and explain secondary sanctions to the listener because that's a term thrown around on the news that most people don't fully grasp.
Sure, yeah.
Why is lifting secondary sanctions such a massive concession?
It's a vital question. Primary sanctions are when the U.S. says American companies cannot do business with Iran.
Right.
That hurts, but it's limited.
Yeah.
Secondary sanctions are the real weapon.
How so?
That is when the U.S. leverages its control over the global financial system, specifically the SWIFT banking network and the dominance of the U.S. dollar, to say to the rest of the world, if any company in any country does business with Iran, they are banned from the American financial system.
Yeah.
It forces European, Asian, and global corporations to choose between trading with Iran or trading with United States.
And obviously, almost everyone chooses the U.S.
Exactly. So by agreeing to lift secondary sanctions, the U.S. isn't just opening its own doors.
Yeah.
It is surrendering its ultimate geopolitical leverage and allowing the entire global economy to rush back into Iran.
Which makes the idea that this was a total victory completely laughable.
Yeah,
It's not just Dempsey's analogy of a bar fight where both guys walk out with bloody noses insisting they won.
Right.
To me, it's like aggressively suing someone because they backed into your car, and when the settlement is finally announced, you've somehow agreed to buy them a brand new luxury vehicle and pay their insurance for a decade.
That's pretty much what happened.
The U.S. is essentially opening its wallet and saying, how much is this going to cost to make the unpleasantness of this war go away?
Yeah.
The text jokes that reading this document, you'd almost expect it to conclude with the U.S. military offering to mow Iran's lawn every Saturday.
I love that line.
If we were winning this war so hugely, why on earth are we paying them $300 billion and begging them to negotiate?
And dump at the economics. The military provisions in the MOU are just as jarring when compared to the television narrative.
What were the military provisions?
The supposedly shattered, crippled, mathematically eliminated Iranian military somehow possessed enough leverage at the negotiating table to secure the removal of U.S. naval blockades.
Removed our blockades.
Yep. They negotiated the withdrawal of U.S. military forces from their immediate vicinity, and they secured formal guarantees against additional U.S. troop deployments.
There is no forced regime change. There is no formal, humiliating admission of defeat from the Ayatollah.
None.
There is no dismantling of the Islamic Republic's core power structures. It is just tedious, frustrating, grinding diplomacy. The exact, precise thing that television viewers were promised was no longer necessary because the bombs had solved the problem.
So the critical question becomes, how does the media apparatus handle this massive, undeniable, unavoidable contradiction?
How did they spin it?
How do they pivot when the facts on the ground betray the narrative they've sold for weeks?
Right.
The text points to Laura Ingraham as the perfect crystalline example of the machinery grinding its gears to shift narratives in real time.
What did she say?
Initially, when confronted with the undeniable survival of Iranian military assets, she had this incredible, almost surreal quote on air. She said, "All of their military sites, I guess, have not been destroyed."
I guess.
The phrase "I guess" in that sentence is doing Atlas-level heavy lifting.
I guess. That is the sound of reality crashing the victory parade.
It really is.
It's the moment the stained glass shatters and the viewer briefly sees the parking lot outside.
But notice that she doesn't linger on the contradiction. The echo chamber cannot afford introspection.
They pivot.
The pivot is immediate and aggressive. The new argument instantly becomes that the United States is, quote, negotiating from strength.
Think about the sheer audacity of that pivot.
It's shameless.
When the bombs were dropping, the physical destruction was the proof of victory.
Right.
When the diplomatic deal arrived and the destruction proved inadequate, The very fact that we were negotiating was suddenly framed as proof that we were strong.
Whatever happens, they're winning.
And when the Iranian regime survived the strikes, their very survival was framed as proof that the president had masterfully, strategically forced them to the table.
Exactly. Every single outcome, no matter how deeply contradictory to the original promise, is retroactively converted into proof of flawless success.
Provided, of course, that the audience has the memory of a goldfish and doesn't remember what they were told literally 5 days prior.
Which is a safe bet for them.
Which brings us to the deeper sickness at the heart of this entire analysis. Did these pundits intentionally lie? Did they just distort facts?
Yeah.
Or do facts simply no longer have any role whatsoever in this postmodern political theater, where the only thing that matters is whose lie is bolder, louder, and sounds more patriotic?
It's a grim question.
How does an entire society become this thoroughly, hopelessly insulated from reality? And this is where the text makes a critical pivot, one that is absolutely vital for our listener to grasp.
Because up until now, we've been talking a lot about Fox News and the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the author argues forcefully that this is not just a right-wing issue.
No, the text is extremely explicit about this. The anatomy of the echo chamber is a bipartisan sickness.
Bipartisan sickness.
It is not uniquely conservative. The author describes this dynamic as American politics in its mature, decadent form.
Mature, decadent form. Wow. The left has built the exact same architecture, just with a different coat of paint and different aesthetic preferences.
Completely.
The piece points out that MSNBC has its own rigid catechism. The progressive activist internet has its own deeply entrenched blasphemy codes.
They absolutely do.
Liberal audiences consume absolute certainty with the same voracious appetite. They just prefer it to be disguised as intellectual sophistication and academic rigor.
Yes. They want to be told that every single complex, messy event in the world perfectly confirms the sociological theories they already believed before they woke up that morning.
They confuse moral intensity with actual rigorous understanding.
And they suffer from the exact same fundamental delusion as the boomer Republican.
Which is?
The delusion that propaganda only works on those other people who happen to watch different commercials.
Right. I'm too smart for propaganda.
But to understand why this machinery works so effectively on everyone across the political spectrum, we have to look deeply into the actual mechanics of the modern echo chamber.
Let's do it.
The text makes a profound point here. Echo chambers do not need to fabricate everything out of whole cloth. Total fabrication is clumsy, and it's easily debunked.
Right. It's not about making things up. It's about curation.
Yes, curation.
They curate real, verifiable facts to build a completely false picture of the world.
Precisely. Let's look at how it works. They tell the Fox viewer, Iran is a dangerous actor in the region.
That is a verifiable fact.
Iran supports proxy terrorist forces.
Facts.
Iran is enriching uranium.
Fact.
They take these true premises, but then they carefully, surgically exclude the vital missing pieces of context.
Right.
They exclude the profound limits of our own intelligence gathering. They exclude the devastating second-order consequences of creating a power vacuum in the Middle East.
The things that don't fit the narrative.
Right. They exclude the massive economic fallout of regional instability. The audience is allowed to know that American bombs are incredibly powerful, but they are absolutely forbidden from knowing that powerful bombs do not magically draft enforceable, sustainable peace treaties.
Well, I want to push back on the idea that curation is the only thing happening here, though.
Okay.
Because it's not just editors sitting in a room picking and choosing facts, it's the algorithm, right?
Yes.
How does social media curation interface with cable news to create this epistemological loop?
That is the engine of the decadence. The algorithm on social media platforms is designed to maximize engagement, which usually means maximizing outrage and confirming pre-existing biases.
Right. Anger gets clicks.
Cable news networks watch what trends on social media, and they build their primetime chyrons around those trending, emotionally charged topics.
It's a feedback loop.
Then the host speaks, the guest agrees, that clip is cut and immediately put back onto social media. The algorithm rewards the clip because it triggers the exact emotional response the audience wants.
The audience applauds. The narrative hardens into impenetrable concrete.
And any contradictory facts in the physical world are just postponed until the next news cycle, at which point everyone has forgotten the original claim anyway.
The tragedy of it all, and this is the part that really stings, is that everyone can clearly see the other man's cage, but no one can see their own.
No one.
Conservatives look at CNN and see blatant, manipulative propaganda. Liberals look at Fox News and see blatant manipulative propaganda.
Yeah.
Populists think the global elites are brainwashing everyone to maintain power, and the elites think the populists are brainwashed by populist grifters.
It's a circle of finger pointing.
Everyone is pointing at the stained glass window in the other cathedral, completely, tragically blind to the fact that the light in their own room is heavily, heavily filtered.
So if we pull back to the macro level, what does this all mean for the Republic?
Yeah, where does this leave us?
We are looking at a society operating entirely in a post-truth framework. Is the ultimate scandal here simply that political commentators got their military predictions wrong?
Right.
Because, historically speaking, pundits and politicians get things wrong all the time.
I am going to get heated here because I think getting things wrong is letting them off the hook way too easily.
Fair enough.
I am incredibly frustrated by this. Look at the immense, catastrophic damage this tribal worldview does to a country.
It's massive.
Trump chose to take terrible apocalyptic advice from folks like Mark Levin, and Fox News essentially became the bespoke propaganda arm for the White House to sell a war.
Yeah.
And it is infuriating how easily the American public, in this case the boomer Republican, just sucked up this narrative without a second thought.
They bought it hook, line, and sinker.
They didn't question it. They eagerly ignored the critics. They allowed the people who were desperately warning about asymmetrical warfare to be smeared as unpatriotic appeasers on national television.
The mechanics of the echo chamber are designed to bypass critical faculties and directly stimulate tribal loyalty.
But that's my point. When the dizzying pivot finally happened, when the narrative shifted overnight from we completely obliterated them to we are paying them $300 billion in a diplomatic compromise, they just accepted it.
They didn't blink.
There was no mass revolt against the media figures who lied to them. There was no demand for accountability. They just swallowed the new talking point that we were negotiating from strength. It makes you wonder if facts even matter at all, or if the only thing that matters is whose lie makes your tribe feel superior.
I completely understand the frustration, and the text validates that anger.
Right.
But I actually find a strange, paradoxical kind of hope in the author's conclusion.
Hope.
From this go, let's go back to that boomer Republican in his recliner, scratching his head as he reads the actual terms of the MOU.
Okay.
The author argues that this viewer isn't a comic figure, and his confusion isn't evidence that he's unusually foolish.
Wait, hold on. You find hope in the guy who got completely, thoroughly duped by a cable news network. Explain that to me.
I find hope in the friction.
Friction.
His confusion is the beautiful, painful moment where physical reality finally breaks through the closed algorithmic loop. The fact that he's scratching his head, the fact that he feels that cognitive dissonance, means the television narrative actually failed to completely override his common sense.
Right, because if the brainwashing was perfect, he wouldn't even be confused.
Exactly. The television told him obliterated, but the document he's looking at says status quo. That profound cognitive dissonance is the sound of the echo chamber cracking under the weight of reality.
Oh, okay, I hear that. But how do we widen that crack?
That's the challenge.
Because if truth doesn't reside in these echo chambers, and clearly it doesn't, how do we actually get to the truth in a world built entirely on tribal worldviews?
This is exactly where the concept of a metamodern synthesis becomes vital.
Metamodern synthesis. Break that down for us.
The text is analyzing a postmodern political theater, a world where truth is treated as relative, where narrative is more important than reality, and where facts are just tools for power.
Right. That's postmodernism.
Postmodernism deconstructs everything and leaves us with cynical tribalism. A metamodern approach is different.
How so?
Metamodernism requires us to hold a paradox. It requires oscillating between the sincere human desire for a coherent narrative and the ironic, skeptical deconstruction of that narrative.
So what does that look like in practice for the listener?
It means acknowledging that we all desire emotional narratives and tribal belonging. That's human nature.
We all want to feel like we're on the right team.
But we must simultaneously and ruthlessly apply disciplined critical thought.
Yeah.
It requires the incredibly painful, uncomfortable exploration of alternative viewpoints.
It's hard work.
Very hard. When you hear a narrative that perfectly aligns with what you desperately want to believe, when your echo chamber tells you that your enemies are both evil and easily defeated,
Right.
that is precisely the moment you must demand to see the consequences, the second-order effects, the hidden cost.
You'd have to look for the catch.
Truth isn't found by finding a perfectly unbiased news network because that doesn't exist. Truth is found in the synthesis.
The synthesis.
It's found by actively comparing the propaganda of the echo chamber against the harsh friction of reality.
It's about refusing the emotional service. It's about recognizing when a pundit is giving you a soothing lullaby instead of a difficult briefing.
Exactly. Truth in a post-truth world isn't something you passively receive from a screen. It's something you actively excavate by demanding evidence.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought I want to leave you with today.
Yeah.
If the most dangerous, damnable question a citizen can ask their media ecosystem is, if you were so certain about the total victory then, why should I believe your pivot now?
Like a great question.
Ask yourself, what completely obliterated narrative in your own political bubble are you currently accepting without asking to see the crater? Are you sitting in your own cage, staring at your own beautiful stained glass, completely oblivious to the messy, complicated, frustrating world outside?
It's a tough mirror to look into.
Because as we saw with the peace deal that arrived after the triumphant war, eventually reality always gets a vote.
Always.
And when the X-ray machine of our media is broken and we are wandering through the murky landscape of political theater, the only thing that will wake us up from the illusion of total victory is our own willingness to rigorously question the high priests of our own choosing.
Reality is the one country punditry almost never visits. It's entirely up to us to make the trip.
Well, that's today's episode of Metamodernism Uncensored. I encourage you to think harder, fight less, and let's all build something better.